One.
Hi, welcome to another episode of the CaLew Perspective. Hey, John.
Hey,
how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
Good.
I think we have a good topic here because we had one of our listeners write into us and ask for us to share our perspective on how do you overcome setbacks.
Yeah, setbacks is a good one
And
to talk
that
about.
is something that we don't think a lot about, in the run of our daily activity or life or whatever. But it is a very, very good question
Yeah.
to sort of, share our perspective on in that regard. So, I know most of us, in some way or manner, we've had setbacks that we have experienced in our day-to-day existence, and some of the things that we've done and some of the things that we aspire to do, we find ourselves sort of trying to figure out how do we overcome that obstacle or do we?
Yeah.
And I know that, when we look at setbacks, we sort of think of it as being somewhat of a failure in our efforts to accomplish what it is that we set out to do. So,
yeah. Well, the definition, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, of setbacks is to slow the process of.
Okay.
So it's slowing of a process, but it's not necessarily stopping the process.
Okay.
So I think when people think of setbacks, like you're saying, they think of failures.
Mm-hmm.
And a setback, I think, needs to be looked at as just that. It's just setting you back from something, but you're still going forward.
Okay.
Hopefully trying to achieve the goal.
Okay.
I think it only turns into failure if you do, in fact, stop moving forward and there's nothing else you discontinue. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So I think that's the interesting part of it. I think that's what people have to recognize.
As opposed to it being a setback.
Yeah, it's just, hey, this is something that I am now have to overcome to get to the same goal. But I am still moving towards that direction. Okay. So I think that's what people think, that's what's hardest for people to do is to collect themselves and say, let's keep pushing
moving forward. So
yeah, and I think that's the toughest part.
I guess that's the problem is the progress. They don't see it, and then suddenly they feel like, well, I failed in this, and sort of want to throw their hands up and kind of walk away from it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we talk about with the new year coming up.
Yes.
A lot of people have resolutions that they want to do. Mm-hmm. One of them could be weight loss.
Correct. That's kind of a main one.
It's kind of a main one, right? Yeah. So this, if you want to go to the gym starting January 1, you want to lose 10 pounds or 15 pounds or whatever the weight is that you want. Mm-hmm. And for instance, you get sick because it's that time of season as well for people that get the cold and flu, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And you can't get into the gym for a week, 2 weeks, and you're not seeing that progression. Well, that's just a setback to get.
Oh, that's a very good analogy too.
Yeah, you just got to keep pushing forward. Hey, once you feel better, once you're all cleared up, and you can go back to the gym, go back to the gym. Just keep going.
So so in that statement, and it's a very good. I'm sure a lot of you can identify with that sort of issue or situation. So, but I think it comes back into mind when you think about it. Well, after that, you got out of that routine of going every day, and you've been sick for the last week or maybe the last couple weeks, and then all of a sudden, you get ready now, and you got to muscle up the strength to sort of go back to what it was you were doing. If you do not do that, then that would fall into the category that you failed in your effort.
That's right.
To do so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So as long as you can keep, again, moving forward, we can keep saying that probably this whole episode, just move forward, keep pushing forward. No matter how small it is, you got to keep going that way.
So what would entail someone having that kind of mindset, tenacity, the determination? What would you see as being something that would help one to sort of overcome that setback?
My kids are in elementary school, and they're in elementary school, they go to a school that promotes the 7 habits of a effective, gosh, I want to say is an effective leader, effective person.
Okay.
One of the habits is to have the end in mind.
Oh, okay.
Right? So one of the ways that hopefully, you can kind of help yourself there is to have that end in mind, to say, okay, what was the goal?
Kind of like a visual or something
It
like
could
that?
be visual, but it could be just, that's your goal. Like, hey,
Okay.
I know my weight is, X. I want to be 15 pounds minus X. So the end in mind is to be 15 pounds lower than your starting weight.
Okay.
And keep that in mind as your goal and keep that as your focus, right? Because then if you have a setback, you say, okay, well, I'm keeping the end in mind. So never thought I'd actually know what one of the 7 habits for my kids' school.
But that's true.
But it's something to think about, right? To think of, hey, set your goal, and then no matter what in between happens, even if there's setbacks, you have the end in mind of what you want to achieve.
Do you think that would be something that you would sort of display, or do you have it do you think that someone could be strong enough to keep that in their mind as they're going through?
Visuals help, right? For me personally, a visual would help, right? So if I were to have that goal, and for instance, I know with my own journey, weight loss, I would weigh myself every day. I know people, you're going to get people that say, do not do that because you don't want to be discouraged. And don't get me wrong, there's days that went up, there's days that went down, there's days that was in the middle. And I was like, I don't care, because either way, I know that I started this day, and to today, you're down X amount of pounds, and I'm there, right? So like, even though people psychologically, some people don't want that, and they don't want that reminder because they get discouraged if it goes the wrong way. That was a reminder for myself personally to say, hey, I'm still not going that way. I'm going the right way as a whole. It's not going to be an everyday thing, but eventually I'm going to get there.
That's a very good point to make, because I think a lot of people sort of do this, and then they get discouraged, and then that's when they throw in the towel because they say, well, I'm not seeing any results. And they tell themselves, I don't want to look at the scale right now. But I think sort of having that mindset and that visual in front of you to say, okay, what is my progress along the way here, sort of, and I think embellishes or makes that determination stronger in that regard too. And I sort of would take that same sort of approach that you just talked about yourself. One of the things too that, I've always thought of, and it was once said that setbacks are merely just a bend in the road. And so when you think about it, it's not the end of the road, but just a crook, just a deflection in the direction, but it's still moving on that same road, and you can almost visualize something like a winding road in a mountainous area. And you say, well, this road has these switchbacks, which is kind of the same thing. It's going to take you back the way that you came.
Right. So you feel like you're going to go backwards.
Yeah, you're going,
backwards,
but yet you're still moving forward on that same road.
Right.
So when you said that, I thought in my head, I had this visual of how that would be on a mountainous road, and you're going to get there, but it's going to take you a little longer because of that. And so when you said that, I thought, well, people don't like to face that, but it is a way that you can find yourself achieving that. So in a setback situation, someone looking at that as just a mere bend in the road, as opposed to it being the end of the road, I think is most prominent for them to achieve that.
That'll help.
Okay.
That definitely helps. It's a tough journey. You just got to remember too, it's a journey.
Yes. Okay.
It's a progression. It's a journey, and there's just like in life itself, you're going to have things that pull you back, but you got to keep
moving forward with that.
Push it forward.
So now, with that being said, you said something, and it reminded me of something that I heard in an interview with Michael Jackson. This was years ago.
Okay.
But he had said that he took this. It was like a note card, but he had written on it that he was going to be this global superstar.
Yeah.
And he had this, and he pasted it up on his mirror.
Okay.
So every day when he was looking in the mirror, he saw this note that reminded him of his goal, he was going to become this.
That's cool.
I know, and you don't think about it.
And
but
you said he was a younger kid, like he would do.
He was younger. He was younger, and he
amazing.
said he was well. Think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you start to program yourself, whether it's negative or positive, it's the key source that helps you, supersede setbacks if that is your goal to do so.
Right.
Or it can be also on the opposite end, the hold down or the weight stone that hinders you.
Yeah.
So how, sort of, I think it's kind of a mental
Mostly
thing.
Mental. I think so.
And so that setback, where some folks can look at it as being a learning experience.
Yeah.
And sort of that mindset of someone saying the glass is half empty versus the glass is half full.
Right.
So when you look at that, how do you see it?
Exactly. It's your perspective of the situation that'll lead you to either go forward or stop.
Exactly. Okay.
But I think that was cool. You mentioned Michael Jackson. Yeah. He definitely had an immense talent to get where he wanted to get. Mm. But it's good that you recognize that. He recognized that when he was a younger age. So again, he set that end in mind. Like he's like, I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Right. And every day it was pasted on there.
Well, so do you think that he achieved that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody knows
in that space, of course. Yeah, for sure. I mean, was a global icon.
He still is today. And even though he's gone on years now.
Exactly.
But that was the thing that we sort of displace ourselves away from that, because you said, well, he was a superstar and maybe this, and he had these things, but he had to start at some point.
Right.
And I think sort of, I guess maybe the mindset of how you see yourself coming to this. So even as you have this, let's say that you're building a business, it goes back to what is the mindset and the end result of that business do you see?
Right.
And not the here and now, but the end of that business coming to its fruition.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of becomes the motor or the propeller that gets you to that point.
Yeah, that's true. And just, like in business, you've been in business, I've been in business for many, 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 many years. But we all know that business does not run like from A to B. It goes like what you say, A to B is here, but you're going to go
all these
like
different angles
until you get there. And then, at sometimes, you just have to figure it out.
Yeah.
No matter what that is. And that means sometimes you have to go backwards to go forwards. Take 2 steps back.
And that's interesting.
Is it 2 steps back to go 1 step forward? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah.
Right. So that's sometimes the case where you've got to go back to go forward, or what
if we come to an end of, let's say that you're driving down this road, and that it goes through, and suddenly you find that the highway stops right there. It's like it's not dead end, but it's a broken. You can't continue because there's a crevice that has washed the road away.
Yeah.
And what do you do in that case?
You find another way.
But see, that's interesting because if your determination is, and it's interesting because it reminded me, as you were saying this, it reminded me of a time back. I was in the first part of my career, and I was traveling back country, to the Midwest area, and I was taking this road through, and it was going to be a road trip, and I was my destination was Kansas City, but you went through Colorado, and I figured, okay, we're going to take a road trip and cut through Colorado. I'm going to take the interstate across, and then I thought, okay, I'll take this other highway off the interstate and go around this. Particular way. And then I get there and I'm miles on this road, and all of a sudden we get to the point and we find out the road there had been sort of a collapse in the road.
Oh, no.
And it ended, and it was like you had to turn around and go back, miles back to this other nearby town to go back out the other way because the highway was no longer passable.
Oh my gosh.
In that.
But then you found another way.
I found, absolutely. Right? Found another way. I still made it to where, but I had to turn around and go back to a certain point along the way to catch another route. So it kind of reminded me of forwards. That was when you said that, I thought, okay, that makes sense because again, I could have said, okay, well, this is the end of the road. I'm not going to go all the way back this way and then turn around and then go back again the way that I came. But my determination was the end result was to get, to my destination. So I went back all the miles back. I don't know whether it was like 16 miles back out of the way.
It wasn't close, right?
No, it wasn't close. And so you had to do that. And I saw all the other cars having to do the same thing. And I thought, wow, I never thought of it.
Yeah.
I never thought of that moment until just now when you said that.
Cool, yeah.
And I thought, gosh, I forgot that I did that. But yeah, it was on those crooks and turns in there and the highway ended it. And it's like, oh man, we got to go back. And it's like, oh my gosh, but then, you tough it up and you find the determination. You say, we'll do it. Yeah. So yeah, I believe in the question that the listener was wondering, and you get these setbacks. Yeah. And then it's like, what kind of mindset do you have to overcome those obstacles?
It's it is a mental drain, right? Depending on what the setback is, right? So I guess, want to make sure we're clear on that. I know life setbacks are difficult to deal with in general, and maybe you're you just have to deal with it, really. And if you want to keep pushing mentally, you just have to be resilient enough to say, here's the goal. Let's keep pushing forward with it. I don't care if, we can't do it now.
Okay.
And again, like you think of the road closure thing that we were just talking about. Right. Well, let's think about this. What if there wasn't another way? What if that was the only road that you could take to go in and out? Okay. What do?
Okay.
You wait.
Yes, you wait.
You have no choice but to wait. Now you're adding time. You're still going to go forward, right? In the meantime, what else can you do to go forward? Maybe you physically can't go forward.
That's a very good challenge to mind, to the mental.
Right. It'll be tough.
Your determination.
It's the determination.
When would it be such that you could make that pass?
Right.
Or when would the opportunity come that would allow you to continue to move forward?
Right.
So the failure of not doing that is failure, right?
Failure. Yeah, you stop. So even if there's only one way in, one way out, and that's closed, you could still keep the mindset to say, okay, it's gonna open eventually, right? They're gonna fix the road, make it repairable, get it on the road. Now it may take months, it may take weeks, it may take only days. I don't know.
Okay.
But you have to keep thinking, okay, we're going to get through here one day. We're going to make it from point A to point B one day. It's just going to take a little longer because of that setback. Is there anything else that we can do in the meantime, right? Maybe you can start forming your own branches out to say, oh, here's what I can do in the meantime.
Gotcha.
Now you might not make it, again, physically you might have to wait, but you just have to keep thinking of other ways and other things that you can do to keep moving forward.
So do you think, and I know you mentioned they said, based on, life experiences or whatever back. So do you think that that principle of what you just said is applicable for not only, let's say we use a linear statement being the road, but could it be applied to circumstances in one's life?
Sure.
Because a lot of times people are, sort of overcome by, family setbacks, or let's say that job setback, or, financial setbacks, or those kinds of things like that. Do you think that same principle applies to those aspects of our lives?
Yeah, I think it does. Okay. I think it does. Those are really hard to deal with. Things like that are extremely hard to deal with. Family and job or money or whatever it is. I mean, that's definitely hard to deal with.
Okay.
But I think if you can keep your mind on, again, going forward, how do you do that? What other things can we do, right?
Okay.
To get that going, maybe,
Well, you were headed in one direction, and I kind of smiled because I thought, okay, he's about to say what I've, and you did say it, but you framed it in a different way. But a positive mindset, because moving forward is a positive mindset, and you were headed right there, and I wanted so much. You were going to say positive mindset, and I was going to say, that was sort of the thing that came to my mind. It was like, okay, if you so maybe that's the answer that. Maybe the one listener that is a positive mindset, and sometimes that is a challenge in itself to continue to have that positive mindset when everything, you're standing there in the middle of Rome and the city is falling down around you and it's burning, and you're like standing there, I'm going to survive, and everybody's looking at you like, what are we going to do? And you say, well, I don't know about you, but I'm going to survive. Yeah. And everybody's looking at you kind of like, well, how do you get out of this place?
It's crazy.
And your mind is running now at 1,000 nanoseconds, figuring out a way. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, there's that little slight crack in the wall where there's like, and your brain has already calculated the multiplex of scenarios around you. Yeah. But you're so determined. There it is. It appears. And at that moment, you find that crack, that little hole that enables you to get through this moment and this space and this element, this issue, this matter. And there you are. And you did what you said in the middle of all this negative energy that's happening around you, everything burning and falling down, and everybody's standing in wonderment as to how we're going to survive. I see myself, everyone sees themselves as failing, and this person is standing there with this positive mindset that suddenly his mind takes him through this moment. Right. That's a really intense scenario, but it happens. In our lives we face.
Well, it doesn't. It physically might not happen, but that's how it can feel to somebody. Yeah.
I mean that.
Right. Because, everyone goes through something. Yeah. No matter how big or small they're going through, how big or small, I think it's going to be, right? It is your own experience. Exactly. So you think it is the biggest thing in the world, right? And that's fine. That's how I would feel for myself too, this is the biggest thing in the world for me.
Well, so that's sort of, and I'm glad you clarified that, because I wasn't necessarily, it was sort of, what do you call it? Kind of God, I'm trying to think of the word for it. It was a general analogy of it. But sometimes in life, we find ourselves in these predicaments, whether it's financial or whether it's a job related or family related or whatever. It looks like everything is just crumbling around you.
Right. Like you think there's no solution.
Right. And so then you kind of feel like, well, how do I navigate? How do I get out of this? I don't think I'm going to survive this. So if your focus is on that, not surviving, then you becomes part of that. Your trajectory to overcoming that setback that's in front of you is sort of at the point where you're throwing your hands up and calling it, I get a quit, and nothing I can do. So that failure then becomes prevalent. Yep. Is that okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah. And I think too, the setbacks happen in life, as we all know. But I think one, look to the goal, move forward. But if there's any kind of, we're talking about positive mindset, if there's anything positive around you that you can take to help, I think that is something that would help me as well, right? So if I had a bad day at work, for instance, and I wasn't able to get accomplished whatever I wanted to accomplish, but yet I think, oh man, you know what though? But I get to go home to my family.
Oh, okay.
I get to see my kids. I get to hug them, at night. I get to give them a kiss and they get to tell me I love you. And they don't like the small things, right? Whatever that is for you.
Find it,
right? Because that will help you with the positive piece in the negative space. Anything that's positive, I think. So
is that little metaphor and the Rome's burning, falling down, and there's that mindset of that little crack in the wall That's what
your crack.
that's
that
your crack.
Be your crack to be like, oh man,
yes,
that's my light.
Okay,
that's my tunnel, right?
That's my tunnel that I need to get through,
and I need to experience it again to help me remember that maybe it's not. It is a big setback, and because I didn't achieve something, but maybe in the grand scheme, it's not.
Okay, so that sort of perspective in the sense of how you overcome, a setback or setbacks, because you're not just going to have one; you're going to have many. During your, but it's how you navigate those setbacks that determines. I sort of say the grit of your character. There are a lot of times that, there are people that give up, and there are other people that want to give up, but find themselves at the last minute continuing the fight, even though they were thinking they were, because that grit within themselves enabled them to sort of continue that forward momentum. And again, the positive aspect of moving through this space or so.
Yeah. And I think too, if you get through your setbacks and you find solutions to whatever it is you're trying to get through, it becomes a habit for you as well. So that when another setback comes through, one, you probably know how to deal with that. You can look at it holistically and say, well, okay, let's just deal with it and move forward, right? And move on.
So you kind of
you're getting used to it. You learn how to deal with those setbacks, and it's not so, not saying it's not a big. It's not a something where you're like, you just keep. Oh man, I can't do it anymore, right? Like, oh well, I'm going to fail now because this happened again, or this other thing now happened. It's like, okay, I'm resilient enough. I got through the first time, the second time, the third time. The fourth time is nothing, right? And it's getting me closer.
So you kind of build up this
tolerance,
this tolerance
and immunity
for that in a sense, and it's mental.
It's still not fun to deal with, but right, you can at least in your mind starts to flip and change instead of saying,
I think that
I can't do it. It changes to, okay, we've done this before. Let's figure it out again.
I think that's how a lot of the entrepreneurs sort of, build that sort of mental stamina, I think, in a sense. But, I heard something that, this was earlier on, Elon Musk had said in an interview. I was looking at him when he was doing SpaceX or so, and he was trying to get SpaceX launched off, and he was already in the roadway with Tesla when he had spent a tremendous amount of his capital. But I heard him in this interview that he was doing, and I was really kind of inspired when I heard him say this, that he said they were down to the last moment or so, and I'm going to kind of cut through it real fast, but they were trying to get this contract with NASA, and they were trying to prove that they could fire this rocket off and could take the payload and do all this other stuff. And he said it was coming down to the holidays, and he said this was it. He said it was going to be all or nothing. And he had been on this road before, and at this moment he was putting everything in the bucket. So he knew then that this was either going to go or it wasn't. And what he did is he put it all in there, and he had everything going. And he said, we're sitting down, and it was pins and needles. And he said, at the last minute, he said, okay, we're getting ready to do the test fire on this rocket. And it's either going to make it or it's not. And the thing that I thought was most interesting and probably most inspiring, I guess, in that moment is that he believed so diligently that he was going to achieve this objective, and that in this he was putting his last sort of coins, in a sense, into the bucket. And everybody is sitting there, pins and needle. And when he fired off, they hit the button, the rocket started to go. It was kind of like, this is it, and he said, and sort of like, and I thought I heard him say something in the nature of that. It was almost like a Christmas miracle because it actually worked, and that's how they was able to achieve that. But he had been on that where they had failed, or they had these setbacks along the way. And so then he thought, okay, well, at this moment, he said, this is it right here. We've put everything that we've learned along the way, the way.
That's it.
Into motion. And here it is. And at this moment right here, everything we've learned is at the point now. This is when we fired that off. and the rest of it is where he is right now. So I thought, well, that's a good way to look at handling a setback. If you're determined and you're passionate about the things that you're endeavoring in, I would say that you continue that, have a positive mindset. And then no matter what, keep looking for that opening, that crack in the wall, and you will find it.
You'll find it.
You will find it.
And you'll find that find that inspiration again, and hopefully that keeps pushing you forward. Because the last thing we want to hear about is people failing.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And I think that the only way that we fail really is we just basically give up.
You give it up.
And that's where you then fail to make the mark of whatever you're going to do. So
exactly,
I want to encourage all of you to continue on in this road. And hopefully this kind of gives you a different perspective on, how to handle setbacks.
Yeah, we've all had them.
Yeah.
I think, the older that we get, the more we've had and the more we can deal with them.
Yes.
So I think, both of us come from that space of positive mindset helps. Yes.
Got to have that.
You got to have that. So I think that's what
we're going to close this with our particular kindness.
Kindness.
Kindness 101. I always turn to that because they always have sort of and you can look them up on the internet, but they always present a really fresh view of someone doing something kind. Mm-hmm. And I like to just hats off to them as we're coming down to the end of 2024 to say that kindness 101, I hope that we as human beings will reach out to do something kind for someone other than just ourselves.
Yeah.
Please for someone else.
Somebody else.
It could be a small thing, just a simple hello to actually, committing to helping someone in a food drive or food line.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? Yeah. So anyway, Happy New Year's, everyone. We look forward to 2025. It's going to be a great year.
Follow us on all of our socials. Let's see, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok. and
Facebook.
Facebook. I always missed one.
All right, we'll see you next time.
See you. Bye, everyone.